Hi, everyone. Good morning. As usual, I don't have my regular laptop with me and I'm having tech challenges. It's not easy, isn't it? All the things that are familiar to you and which you don't have access to, especially during COVID-19, can be an extreme challenge. Yet, we have to make the best of whatever is available to us. But thank you for joining me yet again. It's episode 33. It's been a little over a month since I started this every day, including Saturday and Sunday, irrespective of whether I have a laptop or no laptop, trying to just stay positive while staying at home. And it's important to stay at home because that, there are, it's a virus. Governments have likened it to war-like situation, and we've seen that social distancing actually helps. And if you're struggling to figure out, does social distancing, it's a really big challenge for us to implement. Think about how privileged we are because we can socially distance other people, especially migrants or those living in smaller houses, or who have different abilities. They may have many more challenges than we do. So anyway, I bring on a guest every day to talk about their challenges and how they are coping, so that they can give us a little dose of inspiration. And today with me, I have Nausheen Yousuf. I am going to welcome her into the frame. Just one moment. Hi,
Hi.
Nausheen. Good morning. How are
Good,
you?
good morning, Elsa. I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show. And it's a wonderful morning today. Yes, we are privileged. Yes, we do have challenges, but we shall overcome.
Nausheen, you're an advocate with Majlis.
Yes.
What brought you onto this journey of being a lawyer?
Oh, well, that's a wonderful question, and it's my favorite question, Elsa, and I would really like to answer that. I belong to a Muslim community, and I stayed most of my life in a Muslim-dominated area called as Muhammad Ali Road. And I had the privilege to go to one of the posh colleges in Mumbai. And many a times, whenever there was a crisis, okay, that was reported in the newspaper that a husband has divorced his wife over the SMS or over the phone call or something like that, we just were worried about it, and we felt that Muslim women have no rights. And every now and then, this was something which was put up in the college by the society at large, that only women have rights, but Muslim women have no rights. Their husbands could divorce them as and when they want. And this literally got me into a question in search of something, that is it that Muslim women are so marginalized and deprived of rights? And I wanted to know what are the rights of Muslim women, and that is something that got me to know. And I remember that during one of the sessions in my college, Advocate Flavia Agnes, who's the head of the organization of Majlis, happened to take this particular session, and she said that Muslim women have got far more better rights than anybody else could. And that is something which got me into law. And here I am, advocating for the rights of women, and yes, Muslim women for sure.
So, if I can just take a moment, in India, we don't have a universal law, isn't it?
Hmm. Yes,
So,
civil law.
um, yeah, the civil law. And there are certain decisions that were taken in recent years, regarding triple talaq, etc. And it's kind of divided even the Muslim community in a way, So, can you just briefly share from your perspective, what is your stance on it?
Oh, well, that's a very complicated question to answer for a very short span of time, because you need to understand different laws before you actually answer this question. India does not have a uniform civil code. We do have a uniform criminal code. Now, what does it mean is that it means that Muslims have got their own personal laws, Hindus have got their own personal laws, Christians have got their own personal laws. Personal laws means laws governing the laws governing your marriage, your divorce, So these are the things, your property rights. So these are the things that personal laws actually come in. Now, if you're going to see, there are certain laws which are better, okay? And in case if you're talking about uniform civil code, if I try to understand in a nutshell from a layman's perspective, uniform civil code, and if I'm asked to draft a uniform civil code, it would be something the best of every law that I should have, okay? Now, how do I figure out as to which law is actually the best of it, okay? So, for example, if you go to see the issue of polygamy per se. Ideally, one man has got to have one wife, and that is where monogamy comes in from. Okay, and Hindus have got a monogamous marriage, Christians have got a monogamous marriage, but monogamy came into existence in Hindus only from the year 1955 onwards. Before that, it was polygamous in nature. Now, Muslim men are allowed to have more than one wife, but it does not mean that every Muslim man has got more than one wife per se. Okay, it's looked down upon by the community. But in case if he does have that particular extra wife in his life, it also entails an equal responsibility towards her. We've seen cases of Hindu women or of Christian women coming to us, wherein these women say that our husband has got into a relationship with another woman and has got married to another woman. What do we do? We don't want this woman to come to our house, but we don't want to file a case of polygamy against him, because in case if we do file, he will go behind the bars. Who will pay for us? At the same time, we've got these second wives coming to us from these communities who say that, see, I got into a relationship with him thinking that I'm his first woman. But now I've realized that he already had a wife, and now I have no legal rights. What do I do? So for these women, we have Domestic Violence Act, which came up in 2005, understanding these kinds of situations. But the problem is that domestic violence does consider live-in relationships, but when it comes down to interpreting this law in the court is not so broad-minded, to understand these kinds of relationships wherein women are being stuck up into polygamous marriages. So if I try to see it, polygamy should not be in existence, but monogamy is not the solution. And if I talk of uniform civil code, then what would I do? Because ideally, monogamy should be the order of the day. But I see the rights of women in polygamous relationships which are being more protected. Their children are legitimized, they have property rights, they're seen as wife. The husband cannot evade his responsibilities. So, this is a very difficult question to answer, which I feel we are not ready at this point in time. You asked me a question about triple talaq. So, very briefly, I would like to touch it. Talaq has certain procedures. So, in case if a man wants to give divorce to his wife, it is called as talaq. He has to adhere to certain procedures. Number one, in case if he wants to pronounce talaq, he should be in a sound state of mind. He should not be in a drunken state, or he should not be in an angry state, because he won't be able to think about it. Number two, in case if he wants to pronounce talaq, he should give a reason to it as to why he wants to pronounce talaq. You are not a good cook cannot be a reason, because ideally Prophet used to make his own food. In case if he wants to pronounce talaq, it has to be before witnesses. The witnesses have to be adult, two Muslim men minimum. In case if he wants to pronounce talaq, there has to be an arbitration and reconciliation session between the woman and the husband and their respective arbitrators appointed by their choice. In case if he wants to pronounce a talaq, she should not be pregnant or she should not be menstruating. It should be over a period of 3 months, wherein he pronounces first talaq, wherein she's not menstruating, waits till another month, pronounces the second one, and then the third one. It's not, never talaq, talaq, talaq. Okay, it has to be over a period of 3 months so that they can think, reconcile. This has been in existence in Quran 1400 years back. At that time, my dear friends, there was no SMS, there was no WhatsApp, there was no phone call, there were no lawyers. So, in case if women come up and say that, see, he sent me an SMS or he sent me a WhatsApp pronouncing talaq, that talaq is not valid. Because talaq existed 1400 years back, wherein all these technologies were not at place. So, law, whenever I try to teach my students, I say law is equal to logic. Just apply logic. 1400 years back, all these things were not available. You had to adhere to the procedures. That's how a valid talaq takes place. What the Supreme Court has done in the year 2002, the Supreme Court has said that you have to adhere to these Islamic tenets while pronouncing talaq. The Supreme Court has done the same thing now in 2016. It is no different than what is laid down in 2002. And it is something which is existing in the Quran years back. So there is nothing which is different or the Supreme Court is going against the Islamic law. But what has recently happened is penalizing talaq, which is not okay. That is, in case if a man is doing this, Muslim man tries to give talaq in an invalid way, he could be penalized for it. That means we are criminalizing this particular man. There are a lot of men from the other communities who desert their women, but they are not penalized. Why this discrimination is made against Muslims is the question. And number two, we already, when we are talking about uniform civil code, why are we diverting our minds and we are taking and we are creating a special statute for a criminal law? And here we are talking about having a uniform civil code, but when it comes to criminal code, we want to have a special legislation for Muslim men, and that is where we are, contradicting ourselves, and that has been a concern. We have 490 already at place, which can be used by people of any community. So if a woman is being harassed, she's being abused, mentally tortured, physically tortured, she can file a case in 498A against the husband and relatives of husband. If he's pronouncing so-called triple talaq, it is as it is not valid, the courts do not take it into consideration. But she can always say that this is cruelty and she can file a 498A case. And that's what Majlis has been into, this particular awareness campaign, wherein we try to create an awareness amongst women that these are your rights pertaining to maybe domestic violence, sexual violence, or pertaining to Muslim women, So this is something that we are doing at large, going out to people and talking to them about their rights.
Thank you so much for that overview. I know it's a very detailed topic and you cannot do
Yes.
it,
No,
in 20
no,
minutes. But,
absolutely.
I think it's important for people to understand that you cannot also, pass comments about whether the law or the judgment is valid or not unless you fully understand the
Absolutely.
topic and the context in
Absolutely.
which it happens and the background. And like you said, it's basically logic, apply logic. It brings me back to the point that, do you think that many women or men for that matter, or anyone, do they know the laws? And if we want our rights to be protected, I think it goes back to the starting point. Do we even know the laws? And therefore, when we are talking about the detailed the nitty gritties of the uniform civil code and things like triple talaq, etc., um, is it not necessary that we have wide scale education on these things rather than you know like getting excited about certain judgments, and not knowing how these can be applied? I think the education piece is really important, because even when we work on sexual violence, we realize that a lot of women don't know that their experience is actually it qualifies as a crime under Indian law.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you, Elsa. A lot of women, a lot of people in the country are not aware about their legal rights, and therefore there is a lot of confusion. People obviously do not look at law books because it's so, people just look at it and they're like, oh my God, this legal language is just something which is going to go bonkers and we are not even going to read it. So this is something that we understand. The source of law that people get through is through media. So people would look at the TV channels or they would look at the newspapers. The newspapers would try to look at the judgment, try to analyze and give their own interpretations, which most of the time is wrong. So they would look at the entire judgment and they would just put out 2 or 3 lines interpreting it, which causes a lot of confusion in the people. And trust me, Elsa, people think that because women are educated, they are working, they would know their rights, legal rights, but a lot, I believe 99% of these women are just not aware about their rights. And yes, we need to reach out to people, to tell them as to what their rights are. And it could be through a lot many ways. One is the media getting the information right for them. The other is Majlis has been into a lot of awareness programs wherein we are talking to students from the colleges, we are talking to women at the communities, we are talking to police officers, because many a times these police officers are also not aware about as to how do they go about with certain things. We are also into training of judges, wherein we try to make them aware about the recent judgments. So this particular awareness has to be done not only for women but also stakeholders who are working for women, be it NGOs, be it public prosecutors, be it police officers, be it judges, and Majlis has been doing a very good work with this. So these are certain things which we need to keep in mind. I would really like to envisage this legal education being a part of our education system, wherein maybe universities could start with a session in schools or colleges about legal rights of women, at least something basic so that they are aware of. And I think it would be something which would be very nice, in case if this could be taken up. So yes, we do need a lot of it, Elsa.
Do you see a spike in domestic violence happening right now during COVID-19?
So the thing is, Elsa, that we've got our own helpline number. We are a Mumbai-based NGO at Majlis, and we've circulated this helpline number wherein we can ask for, wherein we get consultations all across the country over the email, but also legal consultations, particularly to Mumbai. Because in Mumbai, we would be able to reach out better to the women and connect them to various services. We get around 3 to 4 calls in a day, which is almost the same that we were getting before the COVID. Maybe because women are, see, this has been something which has happened so suddenly. People are still trying to cope up with it. And the issue is that whenever there is any such thing that happens, any calamity that takes place, ultimately women's rights takes a back seat. So we would find a woman who's being abused in the house, but there is a possibility that she might not report it or she might not call up because she feels it's okay for the husband to beat her because maybe he's also unemployed or something like that. So she tries to justify this particular abuse. She does not realize that she's being abused. But the calls that we've been getting, we've been trying to connect these women. Most of these women want to know about their legal rights so that they could take action post the lockdown, and they're already staying separate from their husbands. Number two is that they are staying in a relationship wherein they're staying in the same house and the abuse is mounting in. So we try to connect them to the police officers, and it has been a lot of challenge because the police is also very busy with a lot many other things. So we've taken up a campaign issue wherein we are writing to the Commissioner of Police to say that these are the issues which women are facing while they are contacting police and police are responding to them. So this is something that we are writing on. Connecting these women to the counseling services is another thing. Connecting them to the shelter homes, and yes, shelter homes is another area of because they want women to come up with medical tests. They are not taking the women immediately. So that is becoming a problem and we need to take up the issue. And then there is another thing wherein we've secured orders for women in the court, like maintenance orders from the court, and they are on hold for execution because the courts are not running into a full-fledged swings. So these are the women who are suffering because they are not getting maintenance from their partners. So we have written to the Chief Justice of Bombay High Court so that at least these matters could be taken up by video conferencing or all these things. So Majlis has been taking up these kinds of campaign issues. Also, we are trying to reach out to women in a lot many ways. So one of the things that we've done is through an essay competition. We have opened an essay competition for everyone called as Domestic Violence: The Hidden War in COVID 2019, wherein we are calling for entries from the students, and today is the last day. Not only students but all across people all across Mumbai. We've got over 100 entries till today. And so the idea is that we reach out to these people through our helpline number and email ID. B is that you never know, through the essays, these people might come up that, okay, even I'm a victim of violence and I need some help. And number three is that keeping people engaged in an innovative way and asking them for solutions so that we can pitch it out to the authorities. So, this kind of a thing.
I'm just typing in some of what you said, but can you share the helpline number that you were talking about so that I can put it up
Yes,
on the screen?
yes, Emma, Elsa, thank you so much. So the helpline number is 750
Yes,
67
67
32
32
641.
641. So I'll just repeat 750 673 2641. Is that
Perfect.
correct?
And also, perfect. And also the email ID, which is
Yes.
majlislegal@gmail.com. Majlis
Yeah.
legal at gmail.com. Majlislegal@gmail.com.
Is that the right one?
Yes, perfect, Em. Perfect. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
great. So, those of you who are experiencing any kind of violence at home during this time, especially if you're in Mumbai, you can get in touch with Majlis's legal helpline. They provide you with counseling services, but legal counseling services, and advise you what you can do, what are your rights. This is the number and this is the email. They also have creative way of people sharing their stories. So they have an essay competition right now for students. Today is the last day, so take a moment to fill in this and send it to majlislegal@gmail.com. Violence during COVID-19. So these are some of the ways that Majlis is trying to engage with people even during a lockdown scenario. So, we are also getting calls on domestic violence. And at such a point, shelter homes are not accepting people because you mentioned they are not able to test out. The only ones who can reach someone, because NGOs don't have passes necessarily to travel across the city, it's the police. But there's low trust right now between the community and the police. And a lot of people are reluctant to file a complaint or call the police for to make a complaint. I needed your advice. So if somebody calls the police to say that, my husband is beating me up, but I don't want to make a formal complaint, do you think the police will still come and give a verbal warning without making a note of it and at least intervening at that point in time?
So the thing is, Elsa, that we also have been facing this particular issue, wherein we've got cases of contacting the police, and the van not reaching on time. Ideally, the van reaches in 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, but now because the police has got other duty also, so this is something which is suffering, as I told you. Okay, so I would like to advise women, number one, that when they make call to 100, that there could be a possibility that they are not able to get through it. Okay, so for those who are literate enough, I would request them to log on to Google and look out for senior officers police list in Mumbai. Okay, they will get the number of senior officers of all the police stations based in Mumbai. The same is available for Thane as well. Okay, and they will be able to see the senior police officer of their police station. For example, Charkot police station, so and so is the senior police officer. And in case they will also get the landline number of these police stations. Okay, so the first step is call up 100. If it does not work out, log on to Google, you will get the landline number of the police station. If you do not get the help, immediately contact the senior police officer. Or you can contact the senior police officer directly. His mobile number is available on the website. And these senior police officers are quite active when it comes to these kinds of issues. So they will send the van as soon as possible. Because we have recently taken up this particular case wherein the van was sent and the cops were sent to her house. So this is something which would be a piece of advice to women who are in distress. Okay. Also, this particular website has got the DCP's numbers also. So, in case if you do not get the response from the senior, you can go to the DCP. But then, if this as the last option, because you will be able to get through some kind of a response. And in case if you are not able to get the response, kindly contact us. We will intervene with the. We'll try our level best to ensure that the police reaches at your place. This is something at least we could be by your side. I would also request all the others who are watching this show right now that please be the change makers, because this is the time now. So, in case if you see a woman in distress who's facing violence, I remember sometime back there was this Bell Bajao Andolan, wherein women who were facing violence, the neighbors would just come ring in the bell and say that, listen, we are there. Okay. I think this is the time wherein we need to act as change makers and step in for these women, because they will feel protected, they will feel secure, and it shouldn't be that this is none of my business. Also, I feel, Elsa, this is high time for certain kinds of violence which we do not understand. The gender roles need to change, and it is high time. Why is it that the woman should wash the utensils, or she should be the one who should be cooking, and the men in the house are easily watching television? I think it's high time that men in the family should come out to help their women. And if you're not helping out women during this time of crisis, this is a kind of violence which you are meting out onto your women. So I think we need to understand that and come out in our own zones, coming out of their own, out of our own shells to help out and reach out to these women. First from our side, and then first help out your own women, and then help out other women. So I think this is the piece of advice that I would like to give people.
These are great pieces of advice, So, one is the bystander. It doesn't take much to interrupt the violence, but often we think it's not our problem, it's an internal matter. But actually, we are enabling such violence, and you could save somebody's life. The other day, I was talking to a lady in the UK who works on domestic violence, and in the UK, they've seen at least a 50% spike now in violence, and it's translating into child abuse. Two young kids below 3 years were killed in that household
Oh,
because the spouses were fighting, and it's a
oh,
tough situation because especially in India, where a woman is expected to do all the work within the home. You're working from home, you're working at home, plus you're looking after the schooling of your child, because they are also at home. So it's like triple or four times the workload, and that can be
absolutely,
extremely frustrating for everyone. So,
absolutely, absolutely.
is there anything else that somebody can do, apart from, as an individual being a better bystander? But if somebody is at the receiving end of such a violence, if you don't want to call the police and you can't leave your home, what else can you do? Is there some other kind of, planning that somebody can do, like identify a neighbor or a friend who lives in the vicinity and just go there for that time being?
That would be a very good suggestion. I think identifying a neighbor would be much better than going to a relative, because there is a possibility that your building is also under quarantine, and somebody is infected in your building, and it's not possible for you to reach out to your relatives. Or, like for example, I had a recent case wherein the lady's entire family was based in Calcutta, and she was over here facing violence in Mumbai, and then we had to intervene and call up the cops. So I feel the best option is wherein neighbors come together during this time, and identifying somebody in the neighborhood, so that okay, if I'm hearing voices, I can also make a call to the police station to say that, see, somebody is being bashed up in my neighborhood, and this is the lady who needs some kind of help. Okay. The other thing which I read, that in one of the countries, women have this red dot on their hands. So whenever they used to go to the chemist or to the essential services, they used to show this red dot and leave in their addresses at the chemist, wherein the chemists were able to identify that, okay, fine, this is the issue, and she's the woman who's a victim of domestic violence, and they would help her report to the police. So I think maybe working out on those things would also be a very good option. But I really don't know as to how will it go. The government needs to implement these kinds of ideas and these kinds of things. So, but yeah, I feel in India right now, rather than not getting into anything, just immediate neighbors would be the best option for now.
So, coming back to you, how are you coping during COVID-19?
Okay, so I am personally quite busy, because I'm a lawyer. So the courts are not working in full swing, but ultimately I have to work so that when the courts open in full swing, I'm ready with all my work. So my work goes in drafting with a lot of petitions, written arguments, so that the courts could save time on oral arguments. So this is something I'm very busy with. Also, the essay competition that has recently started, when calling, receiving distress calls from women, putting them onto police, counselors, or trying to figure out shelter homes for them. So, this is something that I'm totally busy with in professional life. And the team is also working on, a handbook for domestic violence, wherein they are just compiling all the case laws. So, and the campaign issues that I told you. So, life is really busy in COVID, ideally. But then, yeah, there has to be a fine line of difference between personal and professional space. So, and all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. This is something I really believe in. So, I try dividing my time, where in morning to evening, I dedicate my time to my professional life. And then evening, it's my personal life. So, I love cooking. Cooking is a good therapy. I love sharing it with my immediate neighbors. That's the joy of sharing. And I'm not a television person. Trust me, the news make me feel so distressed. So maybe just a quick little bit of old movies or old episodes of during 1990s. So that's the thing that I do. And yeah, I do interact with my partner. I think it's so important that we gel well with our family members. This is a good time to gel around and helping each other at home, in all the domestic chores that we should do. So yeah, that's something nice.
And once COVID-19 travel restrictions are lifted, what is the one thing that you're looking forward to?
I want to visit my parents. That is the first thing I want to do. I'm just missing them, my parents and my brothers. So I think that's the first thing for sure. And then, yeah, going to my workplace, looking at the pots, and feeling happy that yes, we are back, and just being grateful to God for what He's given us. We are very privileged. There are a lot many people who are not privileged enough. So I feel also the responsibility of giving to those who are not privileged. And small steps actually go along making a big way. So I think maybe helping out your immediate mates or your watchmen or something like that. Small steps really help out. So maybe just looking forward to meeting my maid after a very long time after the COVID is over, gelling well with her. This house is missing her, but then yeah, all these small things, gelling with people who I miss a lot during this time.
Well, thank you so much, Nausheen, for joining us this morning and sharing, a quick lesson in legal on legal rights. But it's been such a pleasure. You've given us an insight as to why knowing your rights is so critical to protecting your rights, and how we can all be better bystanders, especially during COVID-19, where there's a lockdown. People are experiencing different forms of violence within a confined space, within their home, and it's hard to get them the help that they need. So each of us can be more aware, more attuned, and mindful about who we are. With. So thank you once again, and wish you a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Elsa. Wish you the same. Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. And thank you everyone for joining us. And tomorrow we have Eka Banerjee. So please don't forget to join in 10 a.m. again. Bye.
Bye.